You're listening to episode 759 of a very spatial podcast, April 20th, 2025.
Well, hello and welcome to our Very Spatial podcast. I'm Jesse.
I'm Sue.
I'm Barb.
And this is Frank.
And this week we're going to be talking about stuff for Frank's topic. But first, some news.
First up in the news, some good news from NOAA. The GOES, I don't know, is it GOES or GOES? I always say GOES just because I think it sounds cooler, but it's probably GOES. Anyway, the GOES 19 satellite, which is the latest and I guess final satellite in the GOES R series, has been officially certified as operational and is now GOES East. So that's exciting. It's got some upgrades and some cool stuff. So it's replacing GOES 16 and continues to look at our hemisphere. So,
in addition, it's also equipped with the Space Weather Satellite Instrument to monitor the sun's corona. So the Compact Coronagraph Instrument, CCOR1, is new to this particular GOES satellite. So GOES U or GOES 19.
You know what?
Includes that.
I think this may be a bit like the Esri ESR, I think. I wonder if they don't say GOES.
probably.
I don't know if anyone from NOAA is listening. Please let us know because I also am insanely curious. But
if we wanted to
wonder
take
if
time, we could go to YouTube, watch one of
probably
their
listen
videos.
to somebody talk about it. So look, I've always said it that way, and I've always been like, is that how you say it? And it comes up infrequently where I have to say it. So more often I have to write it or whatever. So anyway, sometimes I think about it when I talk, but I just think GOES sounds cool.
I always say GOES. I say, GOES, and then also GOES 19 and GOES 18, GOES West together are, they said they're watching over half the globe.
So it always makes me think of a very famous, reasonably famous Monty Python skit. So I'll let you leave it to yourself to go find it. But
we're getting a round of applause here from the spacecraft team behind us as we watch GOES U float into space.
They say GOES.
So NASA says GOES on the launch.
And the first sentence in this little audio playback was, "Here it goes." So it's like, is that it? But they said it goes. So sorry that I say it goes. But anyway.
We now have definitive information.
It goes west. Yep.
And it's a satellite. So anyway, okay. Next up in news, ArcGIS Maps SDK 2.0 for Unity has been announced. It should be out in the wild, I think. Adds some new features. Some of them pretty cool. Some of them are, you should be, but whatever. So there's 3D tiles, better authentication enhancements. That's the, okay, whatever. Yeah, sure. But at no point is authentication enhancements ever going to be sexy or fun. It's just something that you need. That's just how it is. This is the one that I actually really like, is the better control over horizontal and vertical coordinate systems. So you'll have an easier time getting things actually placed within a scene where you think it ought to be, as opposed to what Unity occasionally does is here-ish, which in geography, here-ish is nice, but sometimes you need to be a little less ishy than Unity sometimes does. That's just been my personal experience. There's a bunch of other stuff in there. Go check it out if you're using the Unity SDK at all. There's some cool enhancements there for you.
Yeah, I was excited about the multiple maps, which you can do side by side, but they said they still do not relate to each other. So you can compare and contrast, but they're still not aware of each other.
I should point out, for like a lot of these updates, make sure you're updated to the latest version of 1.x, which I think is 1.7. If you want to move your projects into 2.0, if you jump from like an earlier version to 2.0, things break. I don't even know if it'll let you do it, but if it does, things go wonky. Make sure you updated your project to the latest one before you update it to 2.0.
I would also add, I stepped away from using this because of just some of the more practical behind the scenes errors that you'd often get with version differences in Unity and all that. So I may come back and take a look at the new SDK.
Okay, and everything that everyone just said about the ArcGIS SDK 2.0 for Unity, duplicate it, but change the name to Unreal Engine, and that's another news item. exactly the same. If you go over to and look at both of the blog posts, it's basically identical. The only difference is that for Unity, you get it from the Unity store, and for Unreal Engine, you go to your regular ArcGIS downloads.
So this is going to be a bit old school and a bit esoteric for the nerds out there, but remember when we were all doing the Flash and the Silverlight and the JavaScript and all that stuff, and that happened, like they would do a thing and then would be in all versions, but not entirely, because Silverlight, Flash, and JavaScript are all radically different. It's like this. It's just that's now but 3D in engines. The difference is that these two engines are more alike than Silverlight and Flash and JavaScript. Particularly JavaScript was always the weird one, and they can keep all the functions actually happening.
And finally, in the news this week, just a heads up for those of you who use QGIS. QGIS 4.0 is now on the roadmap. It is going to basically be switching from Qt 5.15, I think, whatever the current version of 3.4 QGIS is using, which is the LTR 3.40, I think. Current main release is 3.42, which is going to go through 3.44, if you're keeping track, later this summer. And then 4.0 will be, in theory, released in October, but the LTR is going to stay as 3.4 until 4.2, which will be in February. So if you are somebody who is using this for day-to-day work, doesn't really matter. 3.4 is the place you want to be and place you want to stay for a little while, because of course you don't want to jump onto a new version just as it's coming out, but it's something that you can look at now if you want to see. They're even actually doing builds of at least the Windows version that's using Qt4 on 3.42. So you can go and download that and see what the Qt6 is going to look like. But it's just more to let you know that changes are afoot.
And if you want to play with it, this I think is important. It's just not exactly buried, but it may not pop out at you necessarily. Is deprecated APIs are going to be retained in 4.0 to ease the transition. 4.2, I'll bet dollars and donuts that won't be true, but it's to help developers go, oh, okay, how do we move this stuff, plugins and all that sort of stuff, to the new underlying engines and whatnot.
Oh, and as always, I have the caveat, check the plugin compatibilities.
In this week's topic, this is something that came from Reddit. There is a relatively active, subreddit called /GIS r/GIS. If you don't use Reddit, they have these sub areas where you can focus on a particular area of interest or conversation topic or that sort of thing. GIS, I find kind of interesting to look at on a regular basis. If you're a Reddit user, I suggest maybe subscribe and look at. A lot of times you get very good information from there. A lot of very good questions are out there for you faculty or graduate students who may be teaching classes. Yes, your student's final project will be asked, how do I do an X or a Y or a Z? That will be a question on here pretty much this time of year. This is April, by the way. However, there was a neat question that I kind of thought was fun to think about, which is, what do you wish that the Arc suite of products did that it doesn't do right now? And I thought that'd be a fun little topic in the subreddit centered around complaints about annoying things that ArcGIS Pro for the most part does. But I wanted to broaden a little bit bigger to the bigger suite of ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Pro, Enterprise, all the different things we get to use now within the ecosystem.
Such as, to get us started.
Oh, as an example. So this is kind of a weird thing, but I like that we have so many different products that we have access to in the ecosystem. I also find that infuriating because there are so many things. If you go to ArcGIS Online, particularly if you're at a higher education institution, in a higher education institution, if you've got a site license, they give you access to so much of Esri's product. It's very impressive. It's amazing. It's wonderful because we can teach so many things using all this stuff. However, there are a lot of things out there, and it seems to be such a shifting landscape constantly. So if you get a little, I always forget the name of the dots. There's actually a name for that, interactive chevron, or no, that's not right. I can't remember what the dots are, but if you go to those dots and click on it, if you're at an institution, you're going to see a big list of products that are out there. It's really cool that they're all out there, but I don't have the time to figure them all out and figure out how this particular tool fits within my workflow and how it can help my workflow. The net result is, more often than not, I go, that's neat. And then I just do the things I'm used to doing, which that's maddening. I wish there was a better way for ArcGIS Online to come up with a new product and help me understand how to use this product in what I need to do.
Well, I mean, there's the fact that many of these products are not new products. They're just being brought over from the desktop version. So there's some of that. So they're not necessarily new, but yes, other than this is what's new in March's or June's or November's ArcGIS Online updates, you don't know which ones were the ones that were there, and trying to remember all the ones each time that it's updated roughly quarterly is, not for those of us whose memories are not as good anymore.
Well, and I agree. And as a follow-on to that, too, in teaching it. So I think some of this will be, because we're all educators, like the things that we will find frustrating stuff may not be those who have professional workflows, right? But in any event, one of the things that is most difficult to teach to students, right, is how do I know what question to ask to find the tool, kind of thing. And so a lot of times when I do spatial analysis, it's about, here's the questions you're asking. And so you have to think of the result, and this is the tool that might get you there. But we've maintained through all of the versions, right, the way tools are organized in the toolboxes and stuff. And some of that is reasonably intuitive, data management, whatever. But sometimes you find, especially with the newer types, you can search them by name, but if you don't know what it is, like what the name is, right, it becomes difficult to kind of guess through it, because there's always going to be a keyword that's going to be in there. But in any event, I mean, maybe there's not really a solution to it, because again, this is more a logistic organization of the software kind of thing, but just a different way maybe to envision how the things that the GIS can do on the analysis side are either grouped or named, or again, because some of them obvious, some of them less so.
I think we're the problem.
Maybe that's it.
I go through, I look at these things, I look for these things that I know exist or that I'm aware that exist through various research. The students who are doing best right now for me are the ones who are going to Claude or ChatGPT or whatever they're using and saying, how do I do this? And it gives them the tools that they need to find in ArcGIS and how to do it. Now, Esri's been talking about integrating these type of search features into ArcGIS Online, into ArcGIS Pro. They're not quite there yet, but I expect we'll see them from Esri at some point in time themselves. But until then, it's less about knowing the tools and beginning to know how to find the tools. And that's been us as well. I mean, as all of this went from hard copies when we were first starting to being online, I mean, we spent a lot more time looking for tools and how to do these things using online tools. And it's just shifting now from understanding how to search on Reddit or Substacks or, I don't know, whatever tool you're used to using, to now shifting to letting the LLMs, be the house for that information and letting the GPTs pull that information out for us instead of having to search it out ourselves anymore. So I think, we as the olds are somewhat the problem in this particular stack of issues more than anything else. Yeah,
I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, my favorite one though I will say this, right, that the students cannot grasp why it's called this is zonal stats. It's just like those two words together, and I will tell them time again, like, it's rare to have to use it, but that's one that, I mean, we get what it means and all that, but like, so yeah, I mean, I don't think you're wrong, right? Because that's how we would do it, right? We either would learn it from somebody else in our lab back in the day when we're olds, or yes, we'd go to a forum.
So I'm with Jesse that I'm another person that encourages and uses myself the large language models to find, what are other terms that might be used to describe this to figure out in ESRI what to look for, and also to fill in the blanks with any sort of directions on how to do something, and have found it, very useful. And almost it's like a side-by-side along with using any ESRI product.
I mean, for me, the source of this complaint is the consolidations and moving this there and then getting rid of that and all this other stuff like that. And I feel like, I just went to the Chevron right now just to see what the heck is there. And there's stuff there that I'm like, I don't have any clue what Excalibur is. Admittedly, it's in beta, but I'm just like, what in the world is that thing? And then,
so to answer your question, that is the imagery backend. And is it in? I thought it was out of beta. Is there a non-beta version? Let me click on show more and look real quick.
ArcGIS Excalibur beta. And then similarly, Survey 123 has always bugged the hell out of me because my survey students go, oh, and I go, no, it's not that. It's something totally different. It's not going to help you do the thing that you're thinking about. It's for other stuff completely. But Esri's always had a naming, issue that goes with it going back years and years and years. So, I mean, there's just stuff in here that just, like things get deprecated. And if you don't keep up with the show notes, you won't keep up with that. Is Experience Builder gone now? Or
Experience Builder? No.
Okay, because it's not showing up on my list, for example.
You might have to click on the show more. Sometimes.
Oh, there it is. I see it. I see Experience Builder. Yeah, but it's nowhere near instant apps.
App Studio.
Yeah, we just
did.
I still have App Studio installed.
Right, but so because it's basically alphabetical. Experience Builder and Instant Apps in my head are, conjoined. One's a deeper version of the other in a lot of ways, but they're nowhere near each other spatially on the list of icons. So it's like, okay, where the hell is this thing? That little stuff like that. It's just always kind of, I feel like there's a better way to cohesively get linked things together than alphabetically.
I will say that some of us, like weirdos like me, go through and rearrange based on which ones we use more. So, I mean, story maps is usually buried at the bottom. So every time I help a student, I'm like, I have no idea where it is because I put it at the very top because I know I'm going to have to use it every semester to help students and give them answers.
How do you rearrange them?
Oh, used to be just drag, but it didn't just work whenever I just tried it. So I don't know.
Yeah, it is. You do just drag it. It's just a little one. But weirdly enough, story maps is the top of mine, and I don't remember ever doing that. Anyway, that was mine.
So I'm going to follow on with mine, which I guess it's interestingly sort of my things that now, because there's just so many functions and tools and things that are here, is a lot of mine that are wish list things are more to smooth the process of actually using it, especially again in the education setting. So here's one thing, and this probably isn't something that's just ArcGIS Online. It's probably any software that requires an always-on connection to the internet and to go back and forth for remote processes. And that is some better way to tell the impact of the health, and maybe it's impossible to do, to tell the impact of the health of your connection on the timing of your tool use, right? So how long it's going to take, and will it potentially compromise the results coming back, right? So like a sort of live little thing there going, right now, the internet connection is not supporting this tool, and it's going to... And so a better way to do that rather than watch it spin. And this is it, right? We used to not care if we would run a buffer and it would take 8 hours, right? Back in the day, us olds be like, yeah, I'll just go get supper and come back and see what happens. But now, if it takes more than 3 minutes, you're like, what's wrong? And it increasingly at certain times of the day or whatever, right? People's internet connections, and it will affect some of the tools, whether it is in ArcGIS Pro when you're running it or whether it's ArcGIS Online. And so what I would like to see is a wish list. And again, this may not be something, Frank, as a web person will know this, may not be something that's doable, but just a way to see whether or not maybe you should just wait and do it later.
It's also a question of server load. So Dr. Bergeron has classes that are dead in the middle of the peak time for not just the East Coast, but also the West Coast. Whereas I have classes that are in the morning. It's generally before West Coast is online. And so I don't see a lot of the same slowdowns that she complains about whenever she uses some of the same exercises. And so, yeah, it's not just connection health, but also, server load. And it's hard to see that because, as we know, not all the servers are Esri servers. So and
Yeah,
given
I mean,
how
I
it's
don't even
distributed.
care whose problem it is. I would just like to know that, yep, we already know that this is going to be a problem. That's my wish. And maybe it's, again, I don't do web stuff, so maybe it's not even something you can do, but I wish.
Well, it doesn't help that Esri has been addicted for over 2 decades to 100% for 5 minutes. I mean, it'll get to 100% and then it'll just continue to do stuff. And you're like, by definition, that's not 100% done. It just isn't. It isn't, because math works that way. You stick at 98% for the next hour and a half and I'd be fine. It's the 100% and then it just sits there and spins. Sorry.
So don't tell me 100% until you've actually written the file.
If it's not done, it's not 100%.
Well, the analysis is done, but now it's got to get it out of memory and onto a.
I didn't ask for what I want. Basically, if you go, when's dinner ready? It's 100% done. When can I eat? 2 hours from now. It's not 100% done. It's I need to know it. Sorry. It's definitely something I get very passionate and angry about. But it is, to answer your question, so it is a hard problem because it is going to be a function of the two things you identified, or the Jesse included in there. One is server load and one is network latency, right? So network latency changes literally by the second, and that's hard to guess, but they really should have a pretty good estimation of how much server load this is going to be. And even if they had like really rough estimates, like quick, takes a minute, a little longer, go get a cup of coffee, that give you those rough buckets on server load. You go, oh, okay, this is a very intensive thing to do on the other end. And so network latency is just going to make that worse. So you know that, okay, I'm looking at something that's going to take a while versus something that should happen very quickly. That would be, I think, an upgrade. And you should be able to do that, again, just based upon estimated server load, which, they can do that type of stuff because they've got that stupid credit. I say stupid. I know a lot of people have asked for it, but credit estimator in there that they go, we're going to estimate the credits. Like, well, you can do the math then to figure out.
Credit and time estimate.
Yeah. I mean, you could do an estimate. I'm okay with it. If you said it's going to take 5 minutes and it takes 5 minutes and 27 seconds, I'm not going to flip. I don't think anyone would flip out. They go, okay, fine. I have some idea how long it's going to take.
I know it's going to take more than 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's really all I need. Or like a dashboard, right? So if the network traffic now suggests that it's only going to be like 30 seconds, it's green. If it's yellow, right? And if it's red, like, not to say that don't do it perceptive, but hey, this is going to take a while, so don't panic. Because in the education situation, a lot of times if students are used to tools lasting 15 or 20 seconds, if they start to go longer, not only will they ask the instructor, and I'm like, well, I don't know, just let it run. But they cannot just let it run. That is not in their mindset. They will stop it. They will do something. And then they'll go, I don't understand why it didn't work. And I'm like, what didn't work? Because it's gone already.
Well, I mean, what makes this even harder to do for Esri's products. So an awful lot of the algorithms that underpin a lot of the stuff are just using a mathematical formula, and they really haven't changed how they've done it. They may have updated the programming language, but they really haven't changed how they're functioning in many, if not most cases. When you've got something like an imagery data set where you're going to do something on a pixel by pixel basis, that's the clearest example I can think of. But it may go, okay, I know this pixel is probably going to take between X number of seconds and Y number of seconds or milliseconds, whatever it may be. And two things that happens, it may not actually go through because it may work sequentially and just go, I'm start at the first at 0, 0, work my way to the end, and not actually done the quick analysis to say, well, how many pixels are we talking about here? So that it may not do that. So it may actually not know how long it's going to take because it didn't look at the scope of the project to start with, because the algorithm never had to do that, because 25 years ago, like you said, look, it's going to take hours. That, just go get dinner and let me worry about it. So it's going to take me an hour to figure out how many pixels we're talking about here to do the scope of the project. And on top of that, it probably hits certain pixels where it goes, oh, this is a problem. I'm oversimplifying it, but you can imagine for any particular task, how that would be a really hard thing to do, given that it's using legacy code. I bet if they updated a lot of that stuff to say, well, let's start with a process that does an estimate and then actually do it, because we have the computing power to reasonably do that now, it would be it would have an easier time telling you how long it's going to take. And there's just no money in that because you're not going to pay extra for that, right? Like
Yeah.
if you were buying it, if we all get it because of higher education, but if you were buying it, you wouldn't say like for an extra $1,000, I can give you an estimation how long it's going to take. And you go, nah, that's good. or your business people, your boss will go, nah, we're good.
So that was mine.
Barb, what's yours?
Mine is the co-working and collaboration that still feels like there's not a good way to do work together or to share things with people so they can make comments, especially if you're working with, participatory GIS, that, you go to things like Zoom and Teams or, other ways of getting that feedback. But I think, there can be a better way to do that. And this might be human error on my part. There might be, a way to do it or way other people do it that's just, works well. But so far I haven't found a good way to do that. And there is so much, to share because that's a lot of what we're doing.
Well, I mean, you have sketch layers and things like that, but those aren't necessarily getting those deeper qualitative conversations. And that's part of the problem too, right? Is that Esri continues to dip their toes into the qualitative side of things, but it's hard to, I think, see them making that leap into looking at how qualitative and mapping works together because it's just so far outside of the normal day-to-day use cases for ArcGIS.
And I think they found a tool that they really, 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 really like, which is story maps. And they go, well, just use that. That would do all the qualitative.
That's
it does
telling
it all.
the story, but it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, it's not about ingestion.
Right. And I think that they haven't really gone, okay, we made something that is pretty amazing. I mean, I love story maps. It's wonderful. I love the new version of story maps, but they haven't gone, well, that suggests approach to thinking about space. How could we backwards put that into, more of our products? They just feel like they haven't, if they have taken that step, it's definitely not really apparent in the products.
So if you're working in the online environment, right, there's groups. But even there, it's pretty minimal, right? Because you can share items and you can share editing, but it's not truly collaborative in the sense that you're talking about, Barb, which I think way back when I can remember some of us, and I think I might have even, this is a long time ago, was like messing with a chat program. Like, again, this is still pretty basic. This isn't what other things are capable of. A little chat program that you could run live so that you could talk about tools and stuff while you were running analyses. But even then, right, you would talk about, well, I'm sitting here in my ArcMap and I'm running this, spatial analyst tool, and you can, see it when I'm done, kind of thing, when I send it to you. So even that wasn't what we're talking about. But yeah, I would agree that would be kind of, I'm not sure how I would envision it, but
well, I can tell you how they envisioned it.
How they would envision it.
They envisioned Survey 123, field maps, various mobile tools, because they expected the non-professional to be using not the professional tools. So they didn't expect the people who would be working with us necessarily in these environments to have access to ArcGIS Pro. Back in the day, it was Arc Reader or Arc. What was the Globe version? I can't remember. It might have been just a different version of 3D version of Reader. But they expected them to look at these materials
Arc
and
Explorer.
now Explorer.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
And now, of course, they expect us to publish a map and share that and create an experience that allows them to do some sort of response to that, or to be using one of the mobile apps. And so it's disconnected from the interface that we think about, because I don't think that they think that is the interface that we want people working with to have.
I think that they're preoccupied with the word workflow, which has become a very dominant term in particularly enterprise, but any software realm. So it's not like it's unique to Esri. Everyone's obsessed with the word workflow. And I think that they envision a lot of their tools going, you do this and then you do that and you do the other thing. And some of that is these people over here do it or these people over there do it. And some of what Barbara's talking about is arguably a little more developed in academia, because we do that kind of inherently with multi-author, journal articles and things like that. But the idea is that it's not so much a flow. It's like an eddy of interactiveness that goes on, and that allows you to kind of spin off new ideas. And that piece leads to workflows. So I kind of feel like they've created a set of tools that are designed to help you come up with workflows once you know exactly where you start and where you end. But they haven't quite figured out how to make this but before we decide what the workflow is, how can the tools help us do that part as well?
So if we go back to the curve that takes us from experience to publication, and we're more in the middle of that than on either end with the, never mind.
I will say, right?
I was going to use the iceberg that, I feel like we need to reveal more of what's being done behind the scenes earlier, because we complain that, well, they didn't think to integrate us into this project, but they don't really understand what we do. And I think some of it's they need to touch experience and see what we do, alongside us.
But that's a long-standing thing, right? Experts sit in your cubicle with your advanced software and no one knows what it does, and then you just spit out a result. And then that's still more prevalent maybe than people think. Yeah, so.
But the upshot is that, yes, it's still something that's not, you can build these things in that Barb would like to see, but a lot of it would be actually building from scratch and then linking into the traditional ArcGIS line or other things to get beyond what they have built into Survey 123 or Experience Builder or those type of things.
Whatever happened to that? What is it? Was Maps for Office or whatever?
Yeah,
Get elements,
it's still there.
of that connect into like Teams and stuff.
It was recently updated, I think, even in the last couple of weeks to and it's now called ArcGIS for Microsoft, I think.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, there you go.
Well, that then not entirely, because there is ArcGIS for Power BI, which is Microsoft. So it's still a little more murky than
more than one tool.
Yeah, there is actually, you can get ArcGIS for Excel. Like I'm like, I have no interest in doing this whatsoever in Word and PowerPoint. You can just get the Excel version, which I think is really bizarre, but because I would think you would hook it into Office 365 as part of Microsoft, but what do I know? And let's not even get into the ArcGIS for Adobe Cloud stuff.
Okay, we won't.
Well, you know why we won't is because I don't have it. I mean, I have that, but I don't have any of the Adobe Cloud stuff. Okay. So I don't really even know. Sorry. All right.
So going back to our news item, and so maybe this will be mine. Whenever we look at ArcGIS for whether it's Unity, Unreal Engine, Microsoft, Adobe, whatever tools that they are linking into, it's a limited set of tools. And I think we talked about this many years ago whenever they first started rolling these out for Adobe and Microsoft, or back then Office, of just how frustrating it was to be limited by that whenever you're talking to students and you want to be able to talk about the full capabilities. And it's just kind of this cartographic veneer that's a little bit better than, of course, Excel's by default, but it's not what you could do if you were just generating something and then bringing it out and then opening it completely as that next document in Illustrator or Photoshop or whatever you're going to do, as opposed to using that little tool, quote unquote, from my perspective, to just play around with it. I don't know. It's just, I think and I think we said this back in the day, that we weren't the audience for those things because they limited what we knew we could do. Just like, the ArcGIS for Unity, ArcGIS Unreal Engine, they are great tools if you want to basically create a GIS in a 3D world. But if you want to create a 3D world that uses GIS data, it's not what we need. Yes,
I've had to jettison it every time I try to do that.
So they're great. They work for a lot of people, usually not for us.
Well, I want to complain about the flip side of that, which I'm finding frustrating, is that the existence of those implies to an awful lot of users that's the extent of GIS, and it's very frustrating to say, well, yeah, I can do that in Excel with the Arc thing. I'm like, you can do a baby version of that, sure, but
you can make a map so in much R. More. You can make a map in Python. You can make a map in. Should you? I mean,
Yeah.
we have arguments of whether or not we should be making maps in ArcGIS Pro or whatever, because it just kind of gets you 90% of the way there, but you just want that little bit extra that you can do to make it just a little bit better. And most of us don't take the time to do that. And of course, if you're new into the environment and just have this thing that needs to get done, you don't have time to do that extra 10%. But if you do, that's when we see the things that are in the annual Atlas of Design or the map gallery at the Esri UC, or, you know, all these things that are just amazing maps take that one step past what it does by itself a lot of times for any tool.
And a lot of times, even ignoring that bit, is what I'm finding frustrating is that because you can produce a product that you never could produce in Excel using ArcGIS for Excel, what I'm finding is people who are non-mapping experts are saying, look, I can just make a map, to which they, and then become unresponsive to me saying, yeah, but if you would collect your data at a little finer scale, which you should be able to do without any extra problem, you could do so many more things. And they go, oh no, but I can make the map. So I just need state. Yeah, but even if you got county or address, we could do so much more. But you're already collecting that information. Why don't you just transfer it over to here? Anyway, those type of things happen when non-experts feel like they can do the exact same product. To me, it's a little bit like the Walmart effect. Like, oh, I can get one of those in Walmart. Well, you can, but not really. I mean, a lot of times the much better version is a much better version for a lot of reasons. It's just that I find very frustrating about those tools. It's great for those users, but I don't know that Esri does a great job of saying there's a lot more back here that you could be doing, by the way, which would help them sell products. So I don't really know exactly why they don't do a better job of that.
I always thought, and I would just only say this one, I always thought it almost ironic that very often, though, to even know that you would like to add on and make a map, you would need somebody who does, in fact, understand GIS to point out that, or something, to point out that you could make a map, and then to go looking for a restricted tool like that. So, if that makes sense, like, it's the irony of it. Is at that point, then go get the GIS person to hook you up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've always found them weird.
And we're picking on Esri because that's where Frank started the conversation.
Yeah, but I mean,
keep in mind, this is every GIS product, open source and proprietary, out there, because it's just impossible for anyone to build every tool that everyone else needs to work exactly like we want it in this situation, because it changes all the time.
And a lot of times the solution is your own custom mix.
Yeah, and I think that gets back to is, to the heart of GIS, which isn't just the tool, it's the people. And, a lot of times this is the question of what are we doing to educate people about what we do and what is GIS beyond the tool. And, I don't know if that there's anyone that can address that, but I think, ESRI is so large and so prevalent everywhere that they might be one of the people that can within their universe.
Problem is they're a juggernaut, right? It's so many different tools, so many different potential use cases. It's, I'm unintentionally dodging somebody to do an interview because we've all had colds recently, and so eventually I already feel bad that I haven't reached back out to him, but his use case is very specific, so he has an audience that he can grow. But whenever you're something like Hexagon and Esri, Adobe outside of the geospatial space, Autodesk, how do you bring in focus new groups? Because, you are so huge, and each of the different teams have their own spin on marketing, but it's just, you're already the thing that everybody's kind of like, well, it can probably do part of this. So how do you then, but that's for the marketing departments to figure out.
I have like a half a dozen of like little things. They're just we're near the end here, so I won't bring them up. They're little things that are specifically picking on Esri. For example, publishing an ArcGIS Pro to ArcGIS Online. If you need to update data, it's still more of a pain in the neck than I really think it ought to be. But little things like that. That's just, so there's plenty of stuff you can pick on. But I like the way this conversation went with bigger swings of, how can we think about this a little better, thinking about this in, we like to talk about Web 2.0, Web 3.0, Web 4.0, whatever it may be. But, if the enterprise level software as service is sort of GIS, I don't know what, 5.0 at this point, how do we tighten all this up a little bit and move into like the sort of next generation of some of these tools to get it out of the GIS nerdscape a little bit more?
And of course, just to pile on at the very end, you know what? I know I can go into every layer and set it so that it can auto assign the IDs. I don't want to before I have to make a new story map or export this one layer. Why do I have to right click every time and say, yes, go ahead and auto assign?
I don't care.
I mean, come on.
Just do it. Just leave me out of it. And here's another thing. I'm publishing a web map and it goes, hey, by the way, this thing is not in the same projection as the map. Well, just do that then. Just do it. Don't make me go do that. And it's gotten better because now you can go, hey, that's not the same projection. You want me to do that? You go, yeah. Why do I have to get involved? Just
one button. Do you want me to fix all the issues? Yes.
Yes. Just yes.
And I this year am introducing a whole new generation of students to 99999. Why still? You can delete that if you want.
I don't get those.
That's just it. I have not, for like 3 years straight, did not get a single one. And now this spring, I've seen it a dozen times.
Something went wrong.
Yeah. And it's like...
Don't know what it is.
But now this group, though, this crew is like, I don't believe you that there's nothing you could do. And I'm like, literally, it says it's unexpected and there is nothing I can look up to specifically figure out what triggered that one. You could do it again. And he did. And it came up again. I'm like, you see? So that is something that's hard to explain to, I guess.
You missed a step somewhere.
Yeah.
You messed it up.
Or
go
there's
back
something
and fix
wrong. But either way, it's telling you to stop it.
Here's another thing. In either pro or online, if I go searching for data, don't give me a finished map. I don't care. I don't need their map. I'm clearly looking for data.
Well, then you need to click on layer, not.
What? But and if it just shows you everything, and I'm like, all right, I got to click on the thing with the living atlas,
and so now we'll stop.
Yeah,
and go on to the events corner. As always, if you'd like us to go to events. Maybe.
Yes.
So Machine Learning for Earth Observation Conference is taking place June 18th through 20th in Exeter.
And the 15th European Conference on Precision Agriculture will be the 29th of June through July 3rd in Barcelona, Spain.
Of course, if you'd like us to add your event to the podcast, send us an email to podcast@veryspatial.com.
If you'd like to reach us individually, I can be reached at sue@veryspatial.com.
I can be reached at barb@veryspatial.com.
I can reach it at frank@veryspatial.com and most of the social medias that are worthwhile at Nojapar.
I'm available at Kinda Spatial. And of course, if you'd like to find our contact information, head over to veryspatial.com/contact.
As always,
we're the folks from Very Spatial.
Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.